Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of our live stream show. And thank you to Southwest 66 Credit Union for sponsoring our 2021 live streams. Our focus for this month, as you know, is mental health literacy. And today we welcome Dr. Jain with the Texas Tech University Health Science Center, the Permian Basin campus. Welcome, Dr. Jain.
Thank you for
Happy to have
having
you
me.
again.
Thank you.
Well, we're so happy to have you again as our guest. I know you were our guest last year in the middle of the pandemic, and a lot of the focus was obviously the stress around the pandemic, but mental health literacy is still a very, hot topic. And so I want to just go ahead and jump right in and just talk about mental health management. And I want you to kind of discuss some long-term mental health management, or what that looks like, and how people can manage it.
Okay. Thank you again for having me in your program. I think it's a very pertinent topic. Things have obviously changed a little bit since the COVID era. Last year, things are loosening up, and so now we have group of folks who have had COVID infections, the unfortunate ones, and the ones who did not, but nevertheless did experience a lot of isolation and the ill effects of social distancing, so as to call. So we have two groups of folks. Now we are realizing that many of the folks who had COVID tend to are beginning to show signs of psychiatric problems, what we call neuropsychological sequelae of the COVID infections. Now it's still an evolving picture, so we're not really sure how this actually evolves and who are the people who are susceptible and what exactly are the symptoms of this post-COVID thing. We do realize that people struggle with emotional problems, experience more depression and anxiety, but more importantly, they can experience trouble with focus and concentration and memory, what we call the executive functioning, that can impair if they are already on the edge or compromised in some other ways because of various medical conditions. This will be more pronounced, but even the healthier ones are noticing these things. And the fortunate ones who are never had COVID, but never because of isolation, good genes, or got the shots in time, they are the ones still having some adjustment problems, getting back on the with the real life, being away from home, and being back to a work situation. This can be a period of adjustment. So the question comes back to your thing: what can we suggest to our folks from both these groups, and what are the determinants of a good mental health outcome, short term and long term? And the answer still remains the same thing there. There are certain determinants of good mental health. We know for sure that they are very helpful and have consistently shown to be positive. Other things we are still evolving and still understanding. We know for sure that social connectedness, not necessarily physical connectedness or in physical proximity, but emotional connectedness to people close by or far away, and having a sense of belonging either to your church or your organization, or you have a sense of purpose in life. Those are the people who tend to be more happier and tend to have a better mental health and tend to have better balance in their life. They tend to be more healthy, not only emotionally, they tend to be more healthy physically, they tend to make more rational choices. So somehow these variables, social connectedness, forming connections, feeling emotionally connected, forming a bigger purpose in life, bigger than themselves, something they find joy and purpose and sense of identity and purpose. Those are very important things for emotional maturity and continuation. We do know that physical exercise is also a very, very important component of good mental health.
And Dr. Jain, have you also seen, because people didn't realize, uh, that this pandemic was going to last so long. So it's, we're now into 2021 and still kind of going. And so even people that are what we would say introverts, that they don't necessarily need to be around a lot of people, even them are seeing effects of, hey, I really do need to have some socialization, and are feeling that isolation as well. And also, because the pandemic caused a lot of layoffs and job loss, there that did you see that intensify people's maybe depression or mental health status?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think the folks who are most vulnerable, either financially, job wise, otherwise, have gotten the most brunt of this pandemic, and it usually is the ones, the very rich, the very healthy, the very secure, the very educated, the extreme of the populations. They tend to be somewhat buffered, but the more vulnerable population, which is a majority of us, who are, the common, worker, as we call it, common man of the society, tend to suffer the most. So yes, those are the ones are most susceptible to getting depression, having laid out, having conflicts in the relationships, unstable relationships, financial stresses, relationship stresses, substance abuse pressures, isolation leading to more substance abuse. One thing that had been neglected, that we were thinking that this isolation would lead to more pregnancies in childbirth. Actually, reverse has happened. The birth rate has actually gone down, and more proximity has resulted in more domestic violence, which has been very much overlooked and very much underreported, which has led to further fragmentation of the family system and further fragmentation and trauma to the children.
Yes. And so, what are some potential risk factors and causes that people should look for, not only in themselves, but maybe family members, or you need to look for in your loved ones?
Yeah, yeah. I think we have to take care of ourselves. There are not enough mental health providers to have to address this huge issue, which is second, I would say, third wave of the aftermath of the COVID thing, the mental health consequences of these things. And these are not only limited to first responders who are dealing with almost PTSD-related symptoms. These are common folks. So what you should look for is, most vulnerable are the ones who were already struggling. They already had a diagnosis, but they're on a clinical condition of depression or anxiety, and that may lead to more worsening of the symptoms. Greater isolation, greater pessimistic thoughts, in extreme cases, even suicidal thoughts may develop. So we have to look out for those ones.
So
The
maybe like a change in personality, you notice?
personality, worsening of the symptoms, they're already there, increase in substance abuse problems, more anger, lashing out behavior, more aggressive behavior, more abrasive behavior. Those are the ones are more common, both in adults and in adolescent and children also.
So maybe like a change. There's uncharacteristic
Characteristic.
anxiety or anger or moodiness, or like, you never were this way. Now you're very anxious, or you anger.
Angry, seem to respond very short temper, respond very irritable all the time.
Mhm.
Those may be symptoms of depression and anxiety. I also look at increase in the substance abuse, which has spiked during this time, is also a reflection of not being able to cope with the stressful things and trying to self-medicate. And that's how we like to visualize substance abuse problems. And be it alcohol, marijuana, or any other substance abuse, they can always be part of a symptom that indicates that the stress is overtaking the coping abilities.
And maybe some less obvious, if you see a person obviously drinking more than they usually, that's probably
Yeah.
a risk or a cause. But maybe some like social withdrawal, or you see them socially withdrawing more and more, and they're isolating themselves more from friends and family.
Absolutely. Those are all the warning signs, and this is probably more apparent in adolescent population, where the whole life is previously was involved in social connectedness with the peers and everything. And when you start seeing that changes happening, then it should be a worrisome sign.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they're not doing very good self-care. They used to, exercise a lot, and now they don't really care, and or entering into some risky behaviors where they maybe previously did not. So just some of all of these things that people should look out for in themselves or in their loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And so, where should people, if they see this in themselves or if they see this in their loved ones, when and where can people seek professional help?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think awareness is the first thing, being aware and cognizant, being aware of what's going on with yourself and with the loved one around you is
Mm-hmm.
the first sign. Obviously, it's very difficult to immediately jump up and see professional help. I think it goes through stages. I think family try to gather all the resources they can muster in order to address the problem before they seek professional help for various reasons. And we know that's usually the norm there. But I would suggest that knowing that that this COVID restrictions may and can and has brought up additional stresses on the loved one who's already struggling with mental illness, I would urge folks with a low keep a low threshold. Um, be eager to seek professional help if things are not resolving or improving with whatever interventions you can do. And it doesn't have to be see a psychiatrist. I think going to see a counselor, going to see even a primary care physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician, getting some kind of professional help is very, very important because they can guide you and assess the severity of it and direct you towards a rather appropriate source of help. There are a number of resources available. Of course, Texas Tech has got counseling and psychiatric help under one roof, but we have a number of providers in the community, including Samaritan Counseling Center. Forgetting the name here.
I think Permian Basin Cares is
Basic, yeah,
one,
Permian
Family
Basin.
Resiliency Center. So
The number of there. I'm not being biased. I just cannot remember being the camera. The biggest counseling center we have. There are multiple. There's both Odessa and family counseling center.
Mhm.
Is one on the Illinois street. Um, is it Illinois or is it on Andrews on in Midland? Those are some of the things. I think once you start looking for it, help is available. Do know that the mental health resources are stretched to the limit, even at the best of times.
Mhm.
With the COVID surge, the resources are so. Don't be surprised that you have to wait for few weeks, if not couple of months, to get to see a psychiatrist, even though or a mental health provider, even though you have all the resources you need. And this is a national trend. It's not just in Midland, Odessa area. It's a national trend. So don't wait for the last moment to seek help.
Mhm.
Take proactive steps. Look for primary care. Make sure that a professional looks at the situation and judges it accurately and guides you what level of care is needed. I would not recommend. Of course, emergency room is obviously the ultimate backup we have, but I don't want people to wait for so long or deteriorate so much that they have to make avail of emergency centers. But Permian Basin, Permia Care, and the counseling centers are very good resources for starting any form of interaction. I'm not saying that you have to take medications all the time, but medications are available. They're designed to help you. Of course, they have the limitations in what they can do, and they have some drawbacks, but overall, they're known to be helpful. So
Mhm.
don't be shy about seeking the right help. It's better than seeking help than losing someone because the help was not available, either because it was not recognized in the right time or something else happened. That'll
Mhm.
be sad.
Right. And there's all forms of treatment. It doesn't always have to come to taking medication. So
Yeah, absolutely.
if that
Absolutely.
is, if that's what's keeping you from seeking help, it's
Right, right, right,
don't,
right.
don't.
Majority, right, exactly. Majority of the conditions are treated by talk therapy, or just having a different perspective, or just sharing your thoughts with a counselor who can guide you. Majority of the conditions.
Mhm.
There are only some conditions in certain severity that need the combination of medications and counseling. But in Midland also, we have the cutting edge technologies available, including the shock therapy for extreme cases. For depression, we have ketamine treatments, we have TMS. We don't have to go anywhere, but everything is available right under the one roof. With Texas Tech System, and there's some community provider. I think there's a community provider for giving ketamine treatment. I think it's called the West Texas Ketamine Center. So there are commercial areas available too. That again, the bottom line remains is that I think centers. That's the one that centers for families and children. The one counseling center that was escaping me, and they have very very powerful. They have huge resources in terms of getting counseling for everybody, and so we have resources available. They may not be available very minute because of the demand there, but if you take proactive steps, help can be available to you at the right time.
And what do you say for those that are afraid to seek help because of the stigma around mental health?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, and we always struggle with mental health stigma. I think the way I tell them is that visualize brain as any other organ in your body. You will not be shy if you had a leg fracture to seek help. You'll not be shy if you have a heart problem to seek help. We have to come over, we have to get over feeling and thinking brain as a very different organ that's supposed to be completely immune to all kinds of traumas and all kinds of assaults, as we call it, that happen in our life. Just like any other organ, if you don't take care of our heart, the heart gives up. If you don't take care of our body, the body gives up. Any organ. If you drink too much, your liver goes away, your kidneys go away. If you're not careful about yourself, you can have fractures. Those kind of. So the brain is the same thing. It experiences the sheer stress of daily life, and sometimes it is incapable of coping with it and needs help. That's all it is.
Yeah. And so, what are some tips that I know you mentioned this at the beginning of the live stream, but you want to review them again for some of our viewers. Tips to manage your own mental health. If you're not sleeping well, what can you do to be able to sleep well? Because I know lack of sleep sometimes causes stress and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, maintaining a good mental health. It's of course obviously a $1 billion question, but what things seems to work for most people is having moderation and consistency in life. Simple things that your grandma told you when you were growing up.
Hmm.
Don't stay awake till past 10 o'clock. Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. Wake up at regular time, 6 o'clock in the morning. Get sunlight, get exercise, maintain good mental health in the sense of be nice to others and others will be nice to you so that your emotional stress is much less towards dealing with it. Be kind to everybody so people will be kind to you. And again, Dr. Izzy? Those are some of the things that are very very important for us to uh, to make sure that that those kind of things are very very important for us to do that. So sleeping a regular time, cutting down caffeine, for example, and taking care of um,
Exercising and
of,
even
of,
meditating, to
the
improve your
very
stress. Yeah, meditating to improve your stress, or reading a book, or gardening, or just to manage your and unfortunately, there's a lot of what I call doom scrolling. Scanning for bad news on the internet or Googling bad news. Limit that, because that to me, I think it just increases your stress.
I think that's true. That's a very, very true. I mean, the media definitely does a good job about, um, bringing to our awareness what's going on in the world. However, um, we tend to focus, or maybe we get drifted towards things that are not going so well in life.
Mhm.
Most, particularly during times of stressful things like COVID, deaths in COVID and other things, it's important to limit ourselves to exposure to media, because the same images and things got repeated over and over again. Social contact through social media, I think it should be limited, um, and monitor yourself, that where's the content and the tone of the communication going.
Mhm.
We have enough negativities in our life. We don't need anything more than
Yeah.
is absolutely necessary, and the stress is there. So it's very, very important, that people tend to associate their identity and their who they are, to their how many likes they get on the Facebook, for example, to the post they had made, which is something uncalled for. Um,
Mhm.
so some of the things that, going back to the basic principles in life, what needs to be done in life, what will make you happy, what makes you tick, be it gardening, what gives you satisfaction in life, be it gardening, being playing with your grandchildren, or playing your favorite instrument, finding something that gives you some peace, some tranquility of mind. I think that's very important to rediscover that. Reading poetry, writing poetry, reading books, going for a long walk, listening to your favorite singer, music. Those are some of the very resilient producing activities that we need right now to help us cope with the situation. And we don't know yet. I don't think that we have seen the full aftermath, the repercussions of COVID yet. It's
Mhm.
just starting to emerge. The big wave, I think, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but we should be ready about it. The big wave of aftermath of COVID, psychological effect, is yet to be seen, because nobody knows how deep it will go and how bad it will be.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and then just going back to limiting your intake of news and social media and just engage in civil conversations, either whether that be in person or digitally or on social media. Don't engage in in the back and forth of um, of these. Trying to be right and
Yeah.
things like that and debating and just have a civil conversation and be kind in all the comments that you make.
Being kind and respectful, and accepting and acknowledging differences, be it
Exactly.
a political difference, religious difference, who you are, of different race, creed, religion, color, whatever you want to call it. Nobody's absolutely right and nobody's absolutely wrong. No matter how they much they disagree with you or
Hmm.
agree with you, they cannot be absolutely right and they cannot be absolutely wrong. The truth is somewhere in between.
Right. Because that just creates more stress for yourself and for the other person and just
It does.
and
It does. It
it
does.
affects your mental health too. So
It affects the mental health, because your intention is to change the other person because you feel you're right, and never happens.
Mhm. Okay, so any last minute tips? One for sure, if you want to seek help, seek it, immediately. Don't wait till the last minute.
I would say be aware of mental health. Don't ignore mental health.
Right.
Be aware of it. Be aware of yourself. Be aware of people around you, your loved ones, people you care about you, people who work under you, your subordinates, your colleagues, everybody. We have to find a network, a way of dealing with each other's way. A colleague not showing up at work or coming late and not being invested in work could be showing signs of depression, could be showing signs of emotional distress. Go and talk to your colleague, go talk to your loved one, sit
Yeah.
down and
And
say, what
ask
is
them,
going on?
how are you doing? And you just say
Right.
like, how are you really doing? Not just say, if they're just say, oh, good. No, it's like, how are you really doing? I've noticed that,
Yeah,
you seem kind of down.
yeah. And those few words, those kind words coming from the point of concern and really being empathetic can make a huge difference
Hmm.
in anybody's life. Maybe it may be the only thing they may have heard kind things for a very long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And we will insert the link to the Texas Tech Health Center's
Thank you.
Psychiatry Center in the link below after this live stream. And any other words, Dr. Jain? Any other words of advice? Or
No, I would say, as I was mentioning, there are a number of good folks working in this area. Centers for Families and Children, now the name has come back to me. Number of private and individual providers, Permia Care, Samaritan Counseling Center, and individual therapists and counselors. They're working day and night and working, really long hours to help folks out. They're all doing very good work. If we can put all the resources one page for your audience, it'll be very, very helpful. Not just Texas Tech, everybody in the area will be very helpful.
absolutely.
Just get some help. Knock on the door, get help, and keep knocking on the door until you get help.
Yeah. And know that, a lot of viewers know that, people, counselors and doctors in the mental health world, psychiatry world are there to help you. That's why they went to this profession, is to help people through their mental health issues.
But sometimes we get accused of trying to see patients and trying to make money. You'll never find a millionaire psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist. There's no money in that. I mean, there's no financial gain for it. Most psychiatrists are in this area or in this business to really help. You won't find a multi-million-dollar psychiatrist because it doesn't exist.
Right.
So we are there to help you. We really, really do want to help you.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jain, for joining us again. And we'll, like I said, we'll put all the links to Texas Tech and all of the other mental health centers that are out there in the Permian Basin area. And again, thank you, Dr. Jain.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.